The meeting of the Dudley Charlton Regional School Committee is now in session. It is Wednesday, April 26, 2017. It is 7 p.m. We're at the Charlton Middle School, and we will all stand to pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of of our regular meeting of Wednesday, April 12th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I have three little things. First one's on page 4, under C. And Mr. Matthew will have to help me out on this one. The second bullet, it says recommendation to increase the current health rate plan rates by 7.1% instead of, because it looks like we're going up. Isn't that a decrease? See the second bullet?
That's still an increase.
It's an increase over the previous year, but it's a decrease from the previous proposed budget.
Well, we should put something, because it looks like we're going up. So how would we, originally the budget had how much in it? Was it like, because that's how we save money, by decreasing it, correct?
Right.
So we just have, we should put in something about how much it decreased by. You understand the problem? It looks like we added 7.1% when we didn't. We decreased it. How about just put to decrease them to 7.1%? That would
make sense.
Why don't we change it to decrease, take out the word by and said to decrease common health payments to, that will take care of the whole issue. Is that right? Then another, on that same vein, on the next page, right before letter D, I said no staff or education is affected with the cuts made tonight, because the cuts that Mr. Dust refers to the previous paragraph would affect. I said that no staff is affected with these cuts made tonight. Okay. And one last thing. Everyone else have with that? Understand? And then on F on page 6, on the virtual high school, Mr. Chapman said it cost $450 a seat, but that money is already being used for something else. He clarified that, wasn't he here?
Yeah.
Didn't you say that the $450 for the virtual high school, we already have that money being, we're rearranging the figures. I think we should put that. So we should put that in, otherwise it looks like we're adding $450 to the budget. Okay? So it's a wash, so to speak, right? Yeah, so can you just reflect that? Sure. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. All in favor with the corrections? Motion carries. It's unanimous. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our executive session on Wednesday, April 12th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
On the back side.
Is it anything that we should wait and then table?
Nope.
You can say it?
Yep.
Okay.
Just where it says Mrs. Antossi, it should say Mrs. Reed.
Okay. That's okay.
That's it.
Anyone else? Okay. All in favor? Motion carries. It's unanimous. Approval of the warrant, and we do have a warrant this evening. And Catherine?
Oh, sure.
And Greg made it back.
Anybody need a superintendent?
We're doing well.
Citizens Forum. Anyone this evening that would like to speak to us? You can come forward and state your name.
You can sit down.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Tinsley. I have 2 children in the Charlton Dudley School District here in Charlton. First, I'd like to say thank you to the school committee for the hard work you do. And I'd like to say that my children have received wonderful educations thus far with Charlton teachers, so I am not public enemy number 1, although that's how I feel I've been perceived. I'm here tonight to ask some questions and to find out what the school committee is doing regarding a moratorium with the state. I have really huge concerns about what's going on at the state level with the MCAS 2.0 PARCC exam. I know that you people here were part of a letter that went to Commissioner Chester in 2015 stating that you oppose this test. And the test has moved forward, which is no fault of anybody here in Dudley, Charlton. It's state mandated, I understand that. So my concern is we have this wonderful letter that we put out as a district. Where are our actions behind that? I feel like nobody's pushing back. I don't know if people here know, but Commissioner Chester now has put out he's trying to push new regulations to silence teachers on talking about MCAS 2.0 to students and parents. He's trying to take away free speech from teachers. There are several other things going on with the state level. I am working with the Mass Teachers Association, so I do not come to this program, to this place uneducated. I do not come saying this is my feeling as a parent. I'm coming from a place of truth and fact. And I really think that we do a wonderful job here in the district educating our kids, but we have done nothing to educate the parents. I understand the school has to do this test, that they mandate it. I understand that we're stuck with funding by the state. But I feel like teachers feel like their hands are tied. They can't say anything to the parents. Administrators are only doing what's being told of them from the state level. But if you get the parents behind you, if you educate them, if you teach them what your letter says and how much you oppose that test, and I assume that the letter in 2015 is still the way the committee feels today and how the Teachers Association feels today about these tests. They're getting higher stakes. They're not benefiting our kids. They're not benefiting our teachers. They're not benefiting anybody except Commissioner Chester and his buddies who are making millions off our school districts who are decreasing budgets. So I feel like the parents can be the warriors if the teachers cannot, but we can't do it if we are not educated. And I feel like I'm the only one out there who's listening to the Mass Teachers Association and who's reading the things that are coming out daily, and who has written letters to Commissioner Chester. And I feel like this man has a power ego so big, and he's got so much money in his pocket, and he needs to be stopped because I see our public schools failing if this continues. And this is, I have a huge concern. I know that things might not change while my kids are in the school, and that this might be a test that they're still going to have to take in 10th grade. I understand that. But I think there is a time for more learning, less testing, and it has to start somewhere. And this district could help start that. There's a rally that's happening. I have a flyer I can give out. I would love to see the schools send a letter home and say, help support our public education, help fully fund it, make sure that teachers have a voice. It's happening May 20th, 2 to 5, I think it's 2 to 5 on the Common in Boston. I will be there, my kids will be there. I would love to see other people from Charlton show support for their school system. The public schools are the best schools around, but the way Commissioner Chester's going, he's going to beat us into the ground. When do we become a level 4, level 5? Because we can't meet the achievement gap. At some point, we're not going to achieve that gap because guess what? Kids aren't built the same. Kids' brains aren't built the same, and they're not all going to be here. You're always going to have a gap, no matter how much we offer them. And that's no fault of the teachers. That's no fault of the students. So that's my concern.
Thank you. And Mr. Gusto, you'll address it in the future because the Citizens Forum, we listen, and then you will do research, and then we'll get back to.
Can I say a couple things?
Go ahead.
Through you, Mrs. O'Coin. First of all, Mrs. Tinsley, you're not public enemy number one. Okay? You know how I feel about this. You and I have communicated on this. And I just want to go back to our letter in 2015, which was not per se a letter saying that we want to do away with MCAS. What we were doing is we were supporting a bill that would place a moratorium on high-stakes testing. So basically we were saying if the legislature wanted to say let's take a couple of years off from the high-stakes aspect of MCAS, take some of the pressure off the students and the teachers for a few years until we figure out really what's the right way to go with this. We were going to be supportive of that. You know, personally, as a I shouldn't say personally, professionally, as a superintendent, I'm not against standardized testing per se. I am against taking so much time out of the classroom as it does, and I am against the high-stakes aspect of it. And I think our committee would feel the same way, that we don't have a problem with assessing where students are at in their learning on an annual basis. We do have a problem with, you know, using it as a sword of Damocles to hold over a district. We as a district, you know, when you have to make a decision on what you do on something like this, Commissioner Chester, who he does have significant power, and he answers to the Board of Education like I answer to the school committee. And, you know, as long as they're saying that students have to take this test or there are sanctions against a school district, I feel like as a leader, we'd be irresponsible not to promote the test and make our students take the test. But I will, as I put in my letter recently to the students, it's my hope that the kids will face this just like they face any challenge in their lives. And I think I even said in my letter, when you get out on, these kids are going to get up here essentially on a stage here tonight, and that's nerve-wracking. They straighten their backs, they go out and they do their best, and then they go home. Probably have to do their homework and whatever else. But, you know, it's my hope that our kids will approach this with an appropriate level of seriousness. Okay, this is a challenge. I'm going to put my name on it. I'm going to do my best, and then I'm going to go home and not worry too much about it. And that's the way I think every challenge in life should be approached, and that's the way I want our kids to do that. I will say, personally, as a dad and a husband and a citizen, if tomorrow they said there's going to be no more MCAS, I wouldn't cry, right? But I just wanted to be clear kind of where I stand on that, and you know, nobody considers you an enemy for speaking your mind. We respect that, and you and I have had a little bit of a dialogue, and I've respected the way that we've interacted, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other comments? And
Can I leave the flyers for the school to consider? The rally in Boston is to promote full funding for schools.
Let me make a suggestion. Can you email me one?
Sure.
That I can review it?
Yeah.
And then I'll consider what
It's on
would
the
be the
Mass
right...
Teachers Association website,
Okay.
but yeah, I can
But I'll
send it as
forget.
well.
Send it
I'll
out to me, and that will be my reminder.
Yeah, I can do
Okay?
that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Tinsley.
Next item, school spotlight, Heritage School. Mrs. Pastore.
Well, when we thought about what we would like to do for our school spotlight, it kind of fit that next week will be our third annual art show, Mrs. Rossin? We had fourth. Fourth? So what we brought to you tonight is several of our fourth, and we've got a couple of third grade students in here as well, who want to share their passion for art. And many of you have heard of the new teacher evaluation system. And it's a wonderful tool, but I will always believe that the most powerful teaching tool is our own passion. And when Mrs. Rossin and I asked her, what students do you know are passionate about art that would like to come share their passion? She kept naming, and we could have added another 50 to this list here. And I said to her, that's because of your passion. And any great teacher who has that passion and ignites that fire in others. And I, first of all, want to thank Mrs. Rossin for her. And for the parents that are here, thank you for always sending us the most beautiful, talented, respectful, wonderful children. So I'm going to introduce each one of them to come up in a line. And after I introduce all of them, each one is going to either share a piece of art that they have made that they would like to share with you, something about one of their artists, because we have one that has a special connection to an artist, and then, or they might just want to tell you what they like most about art class. So when I call you, we'll just make a line over here so everyone can see you. Mae Costa, Lucian Gary, Adriella Kuma, Luke Smolsky, Max Warren, Bella DiGregorio, Jillian Terlizzi, and I didn't call you your sister's name, Jill. I got it. Isabel McLam, Sadie Wilbur, Ethan McDermott, and Anthony Desto. And Sadie, I want you to know, Mr. Desto, Sadie actually, when we talked about, we were going to the school committee, she said, should we stay? Do you think, we should stay? And I said, well, no, you can go after your part. And Anthony says, oh, you don't want to stay. You'll get home really late. So I'm actually going to bring it over here a little bit, May. So why don't you come over? Right this way, May. Sorry, over here, May. Yeah, we're going to go right over. And that And I know there's a couple of them that are sort of sharing together, but Maeve, would you like to start and share your piece and what you'd like to say?
What I enjoy most about all is it allows children's imaginations and creativity to run free. Whenever art is around, there is always a story to be told. While sometimes we live in a world of black and white, there is always a color somewhere that will light up our lives and make us happy again.
You want to show your piece?
Beautiful.
Well, my name is Lucian Gary, and I am in 3rd grade, and I go to Heritage School. African art and music is important to me because you can understand about African art history and figure out how Africans feel and what they've gone through. Art class at school is important to me because it teaches people to be more creative and have thoughts of how the world was in history and how our nation has changed. African art and music helps you learn about how they use the resources that they have.
Excuse me, Mrs. Bassori. Just turn them so that the school committee can see their pieces too.
Oh, okay.
We want to see your art.
You might have to make a parade.
That's awesome.
These are debele dolls that some of the 3rd grade students made. All from recycled things. It's like we got our own little village at Heritage. And these, we did have authentic African art on display at the school, courtesy of African Arts and Education and the grants and the funding that we were able to provide. But Mr. Gary and Mrs. Gary, Lucian's parents, have quite a collection of their own, and they let the school borrow them as well. So these are all authentic African pieces too, compliments of the Garys.
Good job.
My name is Adriel Kuma. I'm in 3rd grade. I love art because you can be creative and paint cool things. Miss Watson tells us Miss Watson teaches us to make these amazing paintings. She's really creative like all of us. She's really nice. I have never seen an art teacher that has this much skill. I'm good at art too.
My name is Luke Smolsky, and I'm in 3rd grade. I love art class because I love making new creations and new designs. When I create something new, I feel happy that I made something unique. I enjoy Mrs. Rawson's art class because when you get there, everything is on the tables, and Mrs. Rawson always has the supplies we need to make our creations. Mrs. Rawson is an encouraging teacher because she always challenges you to try new things. She always creates good examples of what we'll be doing in an art class, and she explains how to do things really well. Mrs. Rawson is a great teacher because she always gives you a good smile when you enter the art room. Mrs. Rawson made me realize I was good at art. And I could create anything I wanted as long as I tried my very best. Thank you for letting me share my happiness of art and how great Mrs. Rawson teaches art class. My name is Max Warren. I like art class because it gives me a chance. It gives me a chance to be creative. Even if somebody is telling me like you should make this, they let you do it your own way, which is just like Ms. Rossen does. And I wanted to say a little bit about Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso was a very famous painter and one of my favorites painters. He went through a phase called the
Blue period.
Thank you. The blue period. He went through a phase called the blue period. He also used cubism, which was a collage of colors and shapes, making a picture. And his favorite painting was my favorite painting that he made was Guernica, which he used to show his opinion about war, and he also made three types of art: painting, statues and sculptures, and I forgot the third one. And this was my Picasso painting, which I used cubism.
Very good job, buddy.
Hello, my name is Dudley, and I'm in fourth grade. What I like about art class is when you get there, it's all organized and perfectly set up for you. Miss Dawson always has a smile on her face. She is very inspiring to me as a young artist and always encourages us to do our best, and most important is to have fun. Art is important to me because every piece is different and creative. That's what I love about art class. And I'm in fourth grade, and I love art because everybody gets to express themselves in their own special way. This is my pop art. It was inspired by Andy Warhol. I love this project because we got to make our pictures colorful and make them pop. Mrs. Rossen is an amazing art teacher and always helps everybody when they need it. When we walk into the class, she always makes everyone happy and welcome into the art room. Mrs. Rossen is an awesome art teacher. These are some reasons why I love art class with Mrs. Rossen. Some reasons why I love art class is mostly because of Mrs. Rossen. When we enter the room, she always greets us with a kind, warm smile and always helps us when we need it. I also love learning about famous artists and what they did and how they made art special. These are some of the reasons why I love art. This is my pop art. This is my third painting that we learned when we were learning about wildlife, and this is my pop art. Thank you. Hi, my name is Katie Warhol, and the reason I love art class is because Ms. Jackson is very understanding, caring, and very inspiring. She is very caring because one of my best friends had a problem in her family, and Miss Jackson started something so her family would have to spend all the money on basic stuff because her father had something going on. And she's also very, she's also very creative because she helps me with everything I do. Like, I remember I was trying to draw an American flag, like flapping in the wind or something, and it kind of looked like a trapezoid on a stick. And very inspiring because she teaches us new things about art that I didn't know, like the pop art and the bird and stuff. And she is the best art teacher ever.
Hi, my name is Ethan McDermott, and today I'll be talking about how I love art. I'll also be presenting one of my creations. So, Mrs. Robson, she's probably one of the best art teachers ever.
They didn't get paid money to say it.
And I told them, it's not about me, it's about you. So, honestly, I tried.
The art room is always decorated with art, and whatever lesson we have, there's always a good example of what you're doing, and there's also a lot of art that we do, and art always helps put a smile on your face, so it always helps express your feelings, and it gives my bird something.
Hello, my name is Dudley, and I am here today to speak to you about my love and passion for art. I first started to like art in the second grade when I met Mrs. Ross. She makes so many creative things that I would never think to make. She has a very positive attitude and is very kind to others. Mrs. Ross's art projects are very fun to complete, and sometimes they are a challenge. I get very excited for Friday because every Friday is my birthday. These are just some of the reasons why I first started liking art. All throughout 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, so far, my love and passion for art continues to grow. I love and really enjoy art because you can make so many creative things on paper, and it makes you use your imagination more. One of my favorite projects is when I drew this bird. What makes me like this bird so much is that it came out just as I had imagined. In 3rd grade, my favorite project was drawing a lighthouse with a beautiful sunset background. Mrs. Robson introduced so many art tools to us throughout the years. I've been at Heritage School, such as drawing pencils, crayons, pastels, and water. Some of these tools helped me create such an amazing lighthouse with a sunset background. I would like to thank the Dist Sch Mt Regional School Committee for having us here tonight. I would also like to thank Mrs. Rawson for teaching me such an amazing and creative things. I would also like to thank Mrs. Pastore for providing our art class with the tools and materials we need to create such amazing work. I really enjoy art class with the amazing teacher, Mrs. Rawson.
So I was not kidding when I said thank you for the brightest, loveliest, most respectful, wonderful children. I just came from a class, and one of the most interesting takeaways from this evening that is such a nice fit is that research has shown that the most important critical piece that a teacher can provide her students or his students with is their perception in themselves as a learner. And at Heritage School, everyone is an artist. And that's because Mrs. Rawson's passion and her belief carries over to each one of them. So thank you, Mrs.
I'm blessed and lucky because Mrs. Pastore supports, and Mr. Desto as well, supports anything I want to try, anything I want to do. If I can come up with a reasonable, justification for it, they just let it go. They let it happen. They stop in the room often. The kids always feel like someone's looking at them, someone's appreciating their work, always getting positive feedback, and it shows. Again, parents, thank you. Your kids are absolutely wonderful. I love them. They're amazing. And my 4th graders, I'm definitely going to be missing them next year. Don't even want to think about that yet. But I do want to say, please, come to the art show. Spread the word. Once you go to the art show, you'll never not go. It'll be something that you'll put on your calendar as long as we have it. And we're also lucky that we continue to be supported with the art show because it's absolutely incredible. So some of these pictures aren't done. And that's for a reason. That's because if you want to see them done, you're going to have to show up next Friday. So please put us on your calendar. It's all the kids in the district, and feedback too. Like, we want to know what you think when you see it, and I know these people would love to see you there. So please try to come out if you can.
And they
thank you.
each have an invitation for your school committee members to go to the art show. So go ahead and you guys give your invitation.
And Mrs. Pastore makes it fun, trust me. I have a blast.
Thank you, sweetie.
Kids, come on over here. We got a couple things we want to say to you. First of all, boys and girls, we appreciate the invitations. Apparently mine was left at home.
Right there. She's coming right now.
But
Thank you.
two things, kids, and then certainly some of the folks on the school committee may want to say something. Number one, speaking in front of an audience is very difficult for anybody, even for grown-ups. And you did an amazing job, and I'm just very impressed with that. And number two, when you get to the middle school and you're in 5th grade, Mrs. Rosson's not going to be here, but give your art teacher a chance. She might be good too, okay? I'm just kidding. I'm really proud of you. You did a great job, guys.
Great job.
Beautiful pictures. Thank you for sharing.
We will see you at the art show.
Go ahead.
As artists, you've inspired me to say something else about you in your future. Currently at the Charlton Public Library, there is an artist's work, a Charlton artist's work on display. Paul Gauger first got his first art show when he was in 1st grade, so he was a little bit younger than you folks. But we're having a reception on Tuesday of next week from 6:30 to 8. And as artists, you are all invited, and you can even bring your parents for that. He is a masterful stained glass artist now, and it's an absolute beautiful display. Unfortunately, all our windows in the cottage are a little bit dark at that point, but maybe not, because it's as late in the year. But you are all welcome to come. He is only 87 now. I hope in 60 years, when you're about 70, I will be able to put your work up in the library as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sen. They're so cute.
Thank you very much, folks, for letting us share your evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the work you do.
We wouldn't be here if you weren't there. So.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson.
Do the kids still have to do their homework for tonight?
Oh, good. I don't know.
The school committee votes.
They shouldn't have let us know that. We'll have to make a change.
No homework.
Snow day tomorrow.
Yeah. Right, no homework.
You're all set.
Tell him Mr. Desto said so.
I'll deny it.
They were so cute.
I thought you were doing 2 here.
What?
Family fun night. Is it tonight family fun night, no homework?
No, probably because of MCAS, they don't have homework.
Probably. That makes
But
sense.
they were so cute. Oh, my
They're
God.
awesome. They're amazing kids. She was so
Your son's so cute. Little cutie.
It looks cute.
It is amazing how much they
Hello, Mr. Chuck.
How are you?
Fine, and you?
Oh, just couldn't be better.
Fun time?
Yeah.
Oh, just wonderful.
Okay, next item on the agenda, communications, Mr. Desto.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. So I've got a communication from the Department of Environmental Protection, and I'm going to read it, and then I'll try to explain it as much for myself as anybody else. It says, "Dear Mr. Desto, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection's drinking water program is pleased to extend its congratulations to the Heritage School for its outstanding performance in 2016. Your system has achieved one of the top scores in the non-transient, non-community system category of the 2017 Public Water System Awards Program. Mass DEP realizes that it is no easy task to keep up with the ever-evolving federal and state drinking water regulations. While most systems strive just to comply with the regulations, your system has put forth an extra effort for many years. Mass DEP encourages you to continue this level of excellence in carrying out your work of protecting and supplying safe and fit water to our citizens. Congratulations, Yvette DePisa, Program Director, Drinking Water Program. So, I knew that was good, but I didn't know exactly what it meant, and I still am not 100%, but I think I could get about a 95 on the test. So I contacted Ms. DePisa, and she sent me the criteria for the award. And so basically what it is that our system must be in compliance with drinking water regulations for an entire calendar year. What they do is the Department of Environmental Protection checks the state database for any non-compliance whatsoever. And a system would fall out of contention for an award due to any non-compliance, be it a report not sent in on time, a maximum contaminant level violation, a higher level enforcement, or whatever it might be. And so basically they are looking for slouches and didn't find one here. And so I want to congratulate the Heritage School, Mrs. Pastore, Mr. Tittle, Mr. Smith before him, Mr. Matthew, who works on this tirelessly. And after all we've been through, it certainly is a nice little pat on the back to know that we're being recognized for our clean drinking water. And that is all I have for communications, Mrs. O'Connor.
Okay, and I do not have any. How about our members? Anyone? Okay. Superintendent's report, Mr. Desto.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. Just a couple of things to update the committee. I sent you something via email, but just to let you know, the foreign language trip, our 155 students have returned safely from their trip to Italy, Germany, and the Czech Republic. And according to Mrs. Perangeli, the students were responsible and well-behaved and gained experiences that will last a lifetime. She said there's 155 students who are, I believe, spread among 3 buses. Maybe it was 4 this year, and 3 buses, and each one is manned by several chaperones, but has one sort of chaperone in charge. And there was not a single, according to Mrs. Perangeli, not a single late arrival for any deadline during the entirety of the trip. And if you've been on one of those trips, or you've been to on any trip with a group, you know that's really saying something, especially with a group that size. So really remarkable. I think, like me, every time they go, we kind of hold our breath, but the experience they gain far outweighs my worries, and I want to just congratulate and thank Mrs. Perangeli and especially the students on yet another successful trip. Very quickly, you know that this is the week we are in our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Coordinated Program Review Audit, and it is going, I just wanted to update the committee very quickly. It's going very well so far, according to all reports that I'm getting. The visiting team is very pleased with the way that we do things here. I have my 2-hour interview with them tomorrow, and I look forward to wrapping this up and moving forward. I have no idea what we'll talk about for 2 hours. I was saying, boy, if you put me in a room with Abraham Lincoln, John Kennedy, and Bruce Springsteen, I don't know if I could talk for 2 hours, but we'll do the best we can. And now, to compound matters, late last week, Mr. Packard and I were notified that there would be an MCAS audit at Charlton Middle School, and that took place yesterday. Yesterday, right, Mr. Packard? It was, I'm getting my days confused. It was this morning. The DESE representative left Charlton Middle School today saying that we received an A+++ rating for the way MCAS is handled here. And I want to thank and congratulate Mr. Packard and his staff, and again, especially the students, for their part in all that. It's certainly always good to put your best foot forward. And finally, just a few major events that are upcoming very shortly. One is the Shepherd Hill Drama Club presenting 12th night. They're taking on Shakespeare again. That will be Friday and Saturday night, both starting at 7 p.m. in the Shepherd Hill Auditorium. It'll be a great show, always is. And to reiterate what the students have already told us, one of the great events of the year for us is the district-wide art show. And that takes place a week from Friday on May 5th. It goes from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. You just drop in, walk around, grab a program, You can buy some artwork if you want. You don't have to. You can just look around. It is an outstanding event. Very low stress and, knock on wood, and low key, and the amount and quality of the artwork is staggering. So I really encourage anybody to pop in at least for a couple of minutes and check it out. And that's also at Shepherd Hill. It'll be in the cafeteria and the gym. That is it.
That's it? Okay. And we will table the student rep report for next meeting. And that brings us to new business, Finance Director's update. Mr. Matthew?
Thank you very much. This evening, we do have some donations before the committee. The Dudley Elementary School has received donations for its Caring Continues program from the following. Mr. and Mrs. Bromage of Dudley, $50. The E.J. Stoha Insurance Agency. Stohai Insurance Agency, $250. And the Dudley Women's Club, $100. The Charlton Elementary School has also received a donation of $4,950 from Reach Out for Schools for a music therapy program for special education students in the upcoming school year. That's a substantial donation.
A lot of money. That's very good. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the donations this evening.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. It's unanimous.
Thank you very much. I wanted to bring something to the committee that we've talked about before. And honestly, I don't know if I'm looking for a vote, a formal vote, or just acceptance or, support on this. But in looking at the busing, there are two aspects that I'd like to bring forward. The first is for those students at Shepherd Hill that receive a parking pass. In the past, our practice has been to still reserve a seat on the bus for everybody. And one of the ways that we can become a little more efficient is if we basically notify that those students that we're not going to reserve a seat on the bus for them from day one, but will provide them transportation if their circumstances change and they are no longer driving to Shepherd Hill. With 220-odd parking passes, we don't know what the impact is going to be on busing because we could have 220 kids that live all in the same neighborhood. That's highly unlikely, of course, but we really don't know. Can we actually reduce a bus by doing this or not? And we're not going to know that until we start doing the routing in July. But I'd like to proceed forward with this. And again, I don't know if I'm looking for a school committee vote. I don't know if I'm looking for just support. But it is something that we would need to notify students and parents about.
I think you can look into it. It's worth looking into and then coming back to us if you need a vote. What does the committee feel?
Well, it doesn't hurt to try. The problem is there might be 3 kids on each bus, which means nothing in the end.
Exactly.
How many buses do we actually have at the high school?
40-ish?
Yeah, the number 40 jumps into my head. It's a lot.
Yeah.
How many go down to the middle school, Dudley, from those 40?
All the Dudley ones go to the middle school.
Which would be how many about? So we can't cut a Dudley bus.
About half or so.
Little less than half.
So the Dudley bus probably still be needed for the kids at the middle
Kids
school,
at the
wouldn't
middle
it?
school.
Well, again, it all depends on how this kind of works out. If there are 110 Dudley kids and they happen to be all on 1 or 2 buses, then I think there's a likelihood that we would be able to reduce it. On the other hand, if there are 2 or 3 on each bus, then no, we didn't really gain anything.
Right.
So, like I said, I can't unfortunately bring forward a budget savings for the FY18 budget based on this program, but I think it's worth trying just to see what the impact is.
Doesn't hurt to try, see what happens.
Is the idea of, I'm sorry, Mrs. O'Connor, through you, is the idea of reserving a seat on a bus for every single student, is that a district policy or just a practice that we've used in history?
Well, isn't it a law? We have
It's
to,
a law
right over 1.5, we have to.
Yeah, if they live within a certain range, yeah.
The law requires that we provide them transportation. It doesn't require that we plan to provide them transportation on day one if we know of other circumstances. So that's why I say we would absolutely provide them transportation if their circumstances were to change. But from the initial planning stages, we'd like to not reserve that seat.
Just my thoughts is I think it's a very good idea to pursue because it may not necessarily provide a cost savings that we would hope to maybe eliminate a bus, but it possibly could potentially make the routes much more effective, so that perhaps, geographically, students, it might cut down the length of time that the route is in place. So either way, I think it would be advantageous that we might be starting very far out for somebody who's not on the bus, when we could be making, the route better. But I think with 220 students on it, there's a potential that there could be a cost savings there that we really should explore.
I just want to throw this out. At Dudley Middle School, it seems like every kid gets picked up because those cars pulling up the driveway. I'm sure you feel that way too.
I still feel that way.
And I see the buses go by my house, and they're probably like half empty, all of them. Oh, I'm exaggerating, but I mean, those buses are never full. Could we ever look at the middle school too, or do we have to, is that too dangerous because they're so much younger?
Well, that's the next thing that I was going to mention. The students with parking passes at Shepherd Hill are almost a no-brainer in some respects. We already know that they're going to have transportation. So one of the other things I had mentioned to the committee in the past that you did have a level of interest in was doing an opt-out program at the younger grades. And in thinking about it, I think trying to do that here at Charlton Middle School for next year as a one-year trial program to see how it works makes the most sense, because it's one school with its own set of buses, its own tier of busing. I've spoken with Mr. Packard, and he thinks it's something that there may be some buy-in in the community here on. So I'd like to go ahead and pursue a voluntary opt-out. Again, recognizing that if circumstances change, we absolutely do need to provide that transportation. But ultimately, if we can get, again, because we do know a number of parents pick up their students on a regular basis. If they were willing to work with us and saying, yeah, no, we know that we don't need a bus seat for next year, then it could allow us to become a little more efficient in terms of ridership time and possibly budgetary savings.
Through the chair. Mr. Matthew, how is our contract set up with the busing company? If we drop that bus and then later in the year say we have to bring it back in, would there be an extra charge for that, or would it be at a different rate?
No. I don't know that we would necessarily need to bring a bus back in if we were to drop one.
Just redo our routes.
We would just shuffle the routes as needed.
Thank you.
Plus, there's always kids absent, so the buses would have probably an empty seat if a kid couldn't drive for 2 weeks or something like that. Or in the winter, they don't want to drive or something like that, There must be a few extra seats around.
Again, I will go out on a limb and say that our buses are not jammed to capacity, except perhaps from Dudley Middle School going over to the Boys and Girls Club. But other than that, there is capacity that I see. So I think this might bear some fruit for us in the future.
I think both of these things are great ideas, and I think we need to uncover any way possible to save some money for our budget, and if this has some potential, I think that we should explore it. I mean, we do a really good job in making sure that everybody has a ride when they need it. Rich is talking about making sure that would happen regardless of whether or not they opt out or have their own ride to school. If they need a ride later on, we would make sure that happens. So there's really no risk to the children, per se, but there is a potential here that we could uncover some significant savings here if we find out that a lot of the buses are half empty and we can reroute, and parents want to opt out because they know that they're going to be picking up their children anyway and dropping them off. I don't see any risk in it.
Just for the general public, how much does a bus cost, the run of a bus?
Approximately $50,000.
For one bus for the year? That's a lot of money.
I don't think we need a vote. Just look into it. When you come back, we'll take a vote.
Yeah, again, as long as the committee's aware that we're going to be implementing this, it won't be a surprise when you see it in the high school handbook. It won't be a surprise if you have parents come up to you and ask you about it. Anytime you change what historically has been done, that causes a level of concern with everybody. So I just wanted the committee to be absolutely clear and aware that, this is that we want to do this for next year to see what type of savings and efficiencies we can find.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to special education transportation. If the committee remembers, right about the time that I started here, we switched our out-of-district transportation from the Southern Worcester County Educational Collaborative to Vanpool, a private company, and that's been working out very well for us. For the upcoming school year, the collaborative had indicated that we would be looking at possibly a $70,000 increase in pricing for our in-district special ed students. We held out hope that that increase may not come to fruition. We did not budget for that increase, and unfortunately the collaborative was not able to lower its rates. So I'm recommending that we go with Vanpool, who has written a contract that will provide the same level of transportation in district for next year at the same current cost.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve Mr. Matthews' suggestion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
We didn't have like a 3-year contract or anything like that with them, so we're not bound by anything.
No, and frankly, Mrs. Kabbalah, they were not horrified by this, because I think they were kind of wanting to slowly transition out of the transportation business anyway. And we were about 90% of their business, and so last year we trimmed a little, and then this year we're able to save $70,000 by doing this. So no, there's no contractual issues.
And so we won't use them at all anymore. We're done with them completely.
Right. That's correct.
Yep. Okay.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you very much. Taking a look at the contract and comparing it to the one that we have for out-of-district, which Mr. Cosgrove helped review. So as long as that language is the same, I'll bring that forward for school committee signature at the next meeting.
Okay.
And lastly, included in your report was the quarterly financial update. You know, we are getting towards the end of the school year and the fiscal year. Things look to be proceeding pretty good at this point in time. We always have an eye towards replenishing our excess and deficiency fund at the end of the year, both through revenue and unspent expenses. We'll have a better handle on where we may end up over the next couple of weeks, and you know, one of the priorities for the end of year expenditures will be any of those school improvement projects that were cut from the FY18 budget, to try to make sure that we can get those done.
Any questions on the quarterly? Good. No. Okay, thank you, Mr. Matthew. That concludes your report.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Report of the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, and that will be Joe.
Okay, I think I'm going to punt this one to my colleagues, however.
Okay.
We did have a meeting tonight, but I think that there may be a little more discussion based on a post-meeting to the regular meeting. So, Mr. Desta?
Well, sure, if it's okay, I'll begin. And then first I want to thank Mr. Chalk and Mrs. Rabbit for accompanying me to the Charlton Finance Committee meeting this evening at 6:30, and for allowing me to abandon them so that I could get back in time for the start of this meeting. And so I missed the tail end of what went on, and perhaps they'll want to report a little bit on that. Just as an introduction, you know, I think everybody on the committee is aware we're looking, at this point, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, and we're looking for a path forward that, even in a best-case scenario, is still going to require us to reduce a good bit. We think that in a best-case scenario, we would maybe only have to reduce the budget by, I use that facetiously, only, by approximately $400,000 if tonight's recommendations are approved. And that's if the towns can give us a significant amount over the additional money that they gave us over the minimum last year. So with that scenario, that best-case scenario that we feel it would be a best case, we would still have to cut some within the district, but we may not have to directly impact the classroom, and we may still be able to maintain the critically needed positions that we've proposed. The adjustment counselor at Shepherd Hill, which to us is just critical, and we see it every day, the need for it. And then also the grade 4 teacher, because we obviously don't want to go forward with class sizes over 22 if possible, but as they are now. Without this position, it would be 26, 27 before the move-ins. So, while all that sounds bad, I think it's important to note that with this scenario, the towns would still be making an unprecedented contribution above the minimum to our budgets, and we have to respect that. Last year Dudley gave us $289,000 over the minimum, and Charlton gave us $335 over the minimum. Those are significant amounts, but now we would be asking for even more than that. Now, I want to pause for a minute, because Rich and I do this at the office sometimes. We'd like to get out of the business of talking about the minimum and above the minimum as if it is an incredible thing, but we also have to be realistic and recognize the revenues that our towns have. And the argument about how those can be raised and whether they should have been raised and whether they should be raised, that's another argument. But they have this much, we're asking for a certain amount, and it is a significant sacrifice on their end. So I'll pause at that point. What I did at the Finance Committee meeting was simply to point out what our situation is and why we are asking for as much as we're asking for, and what it would look like for our district if we only got the minimum plus the amount over from last year, which is what both of the towns currently have in their most recently voted budgets. So we, Mr. Chalk, Mrs. Rabbit, and I just kind of talked about what we would look like next year under that scenario, and I think they were appropriately alarmed by what that might look like. And that's, we answered a couple of questions, and then I had to leave, as I think Mrs. Rabbit was explaining how the minimum contribution formula is only going to get worse. And, so I'll turn it over to the two of you at that point, if it's okay with you, Mrs. O'Coin.
Yeah, either one, great.
Well, I think that the meeting was fruitful in the context of having an opportunity to explain the funding situation. I think there was a recognition or awareness on the part of the Finance Board that this is not a situation that can be fixed this year, that based on having a greater understanding of how the minimum local contribution number comes about, I think they recognize the fact that that's not a number that we create. So there is no flexibility with that number. They see how dangerously close this is to really impacting whether or not they can efficiently run town government, because we're in a place where that number is going to be greater than what their resources are. And they're mandated to provide this money based on the state. So I think there was a recognition that we are not looking at just the budget that sits before us, but we're looking at the future, and we're looking at what types of solutions can be looked at. So we did have a conversation about a legislative piece, which we had talked about in Budget and Finance, that I'd like to just share afterwards to the whole committee. And we did have we had the O word discussion.
Did you say the word?
The word was said, and I think there was a recognition on many members of the board that, as unpleasant of a topic it is, that the way the funding formula is, there is no way to sustain both town government and the school budget without looking at changing the revenue streams within the town. And because of the limitations of what is there, they had that conversation. I can let Mr. Chalk kind of speak to where the proposal went from that point in time. If you want to talk about the fact that, we had that, there was an awareness of we could go forward for an override, but an override isn't going to fix this problem long term.
Well, I think Mrs. Rabbit did an excellent job of explaining the foundation budget and how it impacts them. And I think what really came out of it the most is that we're going to come back next year and we're going to have the same conversation, because you're going to have a bigger bill to pay, basically. This is not going to go away unless something changes. And I think they finally got that. When we did talk about the override, it's some of the things you typically hear. And I just stress for the fact that we need, the Finance Committee on board, we need Selectmen on board, we need all the town boards involved, because it affects the community. And that's what we are. We're a community, and the community has to accept the fact that we need a bigger revenue and that it's going to come out of their shoulders. And I guess I sort of went a little bit outside the fact, saying that if we didn't have the support, that it just would not be a wise decision on anybody's part, because nobody wins at that point. And one of the finance committee members sort of asked what the number is going to be next year, and the answer is we don't know. We see that number change from year to year, and it could be a higher number, and it could continue to grow based on what the, DESE says it's going to cost to educate a child. And so that, I think that put a little bit of a concern in their heads to go, yeah, we better look at this. So I think there's going to be some discussions, and I think we'll be able to come back and have those with them also.
Through the chair, if I can just follow up. One of the things that I had brought forward at Budget and Finance that came out of the Regional School Committee meeting last week is there has been legislation filed by Senator Harriet Chandler. It had been filed last year, but it had not been really communicated out so that we could legislatively advocate for it. But the bill that she's filed, which is Senate 217, is a bill to establish a commission on regional school district foundation budgets, which is to try and approach addressing the unique challenge that we have as regional school districts, and really coming down to the minimum local contribution number, which is what is creating a stranglehold on our towns and many other towns. So the commission has no dollar value attached to it. There's no money attached to it. So there's no element of, we're trying to fit this in an already tight budget on the State House level. But it is to put a commission together to really understand the uniqueness that we have as regional school districts for funding. So one of the things that was happened tonight was that we did present this to the Finance Board. The Finance Board did take a vote to support this legislation so that they will communicate on their part as a board legislatively. I would like to put it before our board to propose that we, as a board, send a letter to support and ask Senator Goby and Senator Fatman to also support this, and that we work within a community to ask people to put some legislative voice to this. If we can get the commission in place, then we can address the MLC number issue, which is creating our big challenge. It's not a high dollar value fix. Some of the numbers that have bandied about is that it's like an $11 million fix to the budget, which on the level of the state is a very, very small fix. That if we can get that legislation in place, that if we could attack the MLC piece, and the towns are working on increasing their revenue stream, within a couple of years, maybe this problem will not be facing us every year when we sit down to budget time. So I gave out most of them. So I'll pass a few over, and if Sandy can maybe make a copy of it and send it out to everybody, that would be great.
Thank you. I'll give it to Sandy. You got enough? Okay.
Mrs. O'Coin, just if I could, one more thing. So toward a solution, whether we're looking at a best case scenario, worst case scenario, or somewhere in between, Mr. Matthew and I feel that we should recommend that the committee consider having a budget-only meeting next Wednesday ahead of our, we were already meeting with Senator Fatman and the towns at 6 o'clock right here at Charlton Middle School next Wednesday, and we're suggesting, I think ideally, that we would be able to start at 4:30, because we may need significant time to discuss that path to reductions. If 4:30 is just impossible, then we certainly understand, and we'll do whatever the committee wishes. But we feel like we're going to need some time together to deliberate specific things just on the topic of budget. And we think that maybe an hour and 15 minutes could do the job. And if we can do that on the 3rd, and then on the 10th, we'll have our ducks in a row to make the votes necessary that we have to do to go forward before the town meetings. So just, I guess that...
At 4:30, can everybody make that? 4:30, Stephanie? Yeah.
I may be a little late. I'm in Leominster that day.
Okay.
Until 4, so I'll get here right after that.
You're going to be late, too.
I'll be late.
I'll,
Yeah, we'll try, how about at least maybe 4:45? Let's try for,
Better than, yeah,
I'll be here for 4:45.
yeah, and even if you're a little late,
Okay.
you won't miss.
Yeah, I'll be a little late.
So, do you have to do some kind of a vote, or to have a whole group meeting, or you just schedule it and that's it?
No, we'll schedule
Okay.
Just schedule.
All right.
this evening, and then you're going to post it, so.
Yep, and I'm going to I'll provide the committee with a, it will be a very light package. It'll be just about the possible scenarios, okay? And I'll give you that by Friday afternoon, like usual.
Okay.
So this will be in front of the joint financial meeting
Yes.
on May 3rd. If it's correct.
So Elaine, you wanted us to send a letter?
Yes,
So-
if we,
And
I
so do
can,
we need a vote on that, Greg? Do you think we need a vote or just
You can
send a
just,
letter?
you
I
can
think
just
we
empower
could
me to
just-
do it.
Yeah. Kathy?
Oh, is it like a resolution?
Well, you usually do it.
it is a bill that's been filed. So we just need to, I think, communicate with our legislators, obviously, starting with our
You want
senators.
a letter of support to tell
Right.
them that we'd like them to support
Right.
the bill.
I'll
Okay,
make a
let's-
motion that we support the letter, support of writing a letter in support of Senator Chandler's bill.
Okay, do I have a second? I do, Stephanie. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. Okay, so that brings us up to now FY 2018 budget, and Mr. Desto, you can start.
Sure, thank you, Ms. O'Coin. We'll, I'm going to, if it's okay with you, turn it over pretty quickly to Mr. Matthews so that he can explain the sort of path to tonight's proposed reduction to the budget.
Thank you very much. So before the committee this evening for consideration for the FY18 budget are a couple of different things. First, we have a couple of expense budget decrease recommendations for you. The first is coming from the proposed ELA curriculum creation. We propose to reduce that by $50,000. That will still leave over $33,000 available for that initiative. And I know Mrs. Allen has put together a revised plan to make that work as best as humanly possible, given the reduced funding there. We also, due to the circumstances that we face for the FY18 budget, recommending the addition of $50,000 from circuit breaker to offset special education expenses. By doing that, it will still leave over $500,000 projected at the end of FY17 and FY18. However, again, we dip deeper into our reserves and the places that we can save the money, have money available to us. And then the last expense decrease is a couple of small salary changes representing a resignation at Charlton Elementary School, a leave of absence, and a rescinded retirement at Charlton Middle School. We do have some good news in terms of state revenue did increase by $67,706, both from Chapter 70 and from transportation, based on the House budget. It's good news that it's gone up. It still is not good news in terms of the overall amount, but that's a different story. And lastly, again, based on the circumstances that we face for the FY18 budget, we're proposing an increase in the use of excess and deficiency by $100,000. That'll bring the usage in the FY18 budget to $1.1 million. For the FY17 budget, it was $1.13 million. So we're almost basically the same place as we were this past year.
So the total will be $282,093. That'll be the decrease to the assessments, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the number we'll vote on this evening. I'll entertain a motion to accept the decrease of $282,93.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion on it? Elaine?
Through the chair, just it is logical, but I always err with caution because we're making decisions based on transportation and recommendations based on house. And last year, we got a kind of an unfortunate surprise.
Yeah.
So this is a very optimistic recommendation that those numbers are going to hold. So just, it is the reality. We do need to cut, but we need to be cautious.
With the extra $10, what does that give us per student? What's that bring it up to?
That was $30,020.
No, but I mean, how much per student are we getting?
Oh, $30 per
$30.
student from the state.
Instead of 20, we
Yeah.
get it.
But it's been averaged at 25 the last several
Oh, yeah.
years, so that's still slightly optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other discussion before we take a vote? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. And so, Mr. Matthew, we're going to vote on the new budget. These are the new figures,
Yes.
okay? And we have them in front of us. So the bottom line for our budget will be that we will be voting on $50,418,253. And the assessment, net assessment to Charlton will be $12,663,026, and to Dudley, $8,142,737. So I'll take a vote on those figures, to approve the figures. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
I have a question after from that. I think Monday night, Town Administrator Dudley presented a balanced budget. What figure did he actually have for the schools? Because it said it went up 400 and something, but what actual figure would that be with all the capital assessments and everything? What figure did they vote for the schools? Do you have that available?
I
You understand what I'm
think
saying?
we do, actually. He had, he voted the minimum increase plus what he gave us over last year, but I think I have the actual number. Do you have that somewhere in your?
I don't have the actual number, but I do know that it was the minimum increase, the increase in the minimum contribution plus the amount over that they had last year. So,
I guess what I'm saying is, our assessment to Dudley is 8.1 million. What was his figure for us? I'd like the actual figure. Was it 8.0, 7.5?
that I don't have.
That must be
I
around
worked
somewhere.
backwards from.
So could you get,
the
I'd like to know how far
newspaper.
off we are from his figure.
We'll send that out to you first thing tomorrow.
You don't
I'd
have it
like
now?
it to.
Um,
I'd like
let's
to
see.
see that.
It must be somewhere.
Yeah, so this
voted
is,
on.
I don't have the exact number they voted, but it should be.
I think could we ask Mrs. LeBlanc might have it.
I did the math this afternoon, and what you just voted tonight, the difference between what Dudley is providing and what you just voted is $436,224.
So that's how much,
200 what?
$436,224.
that's how much we're over to meet his recommend.
Wouldn't this be, let's see.
Okay, so
Okay.
about almost a half.
This is.
$500,000.
32,000 over.
Okay, thank you, Mrs.
Thank you,
LeBlanc.
but isn't this the number right here?
Has Charlton
Well,
voted have
again,
balanced
we don't
budget?
have
Have
their
they
actual
done that
votes.
yet? Okay, so my question is, because I would like for our May 3rd meeting, how to reach that target number. Will you have that in concrete figures, like to
Yes.
get to that 436 and the comparable for Charlton? Because we have to face reality.
Yes,
We've only got 2 weeks about.
that's our worst-case scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
But if that's the figure they're voting in Dudley, obviously that's what they're sticking with.
Well, not necessarily. They also
Well, they
added-
want to. Let's put it that way. They want to stick with that.
Well, they voted it and said that
Right.
anything more comes from stabilization or additional free
Right.
cash. So I do think that there's still some room
Will you be in
there.
discussion with Ms.
Yes,
before May 3rd?
yes,
Okay,
And
All
you have been in discussion with Greg.
yes, frequently.
thank you. And we don't have the figures for Charlton, so we can't.
But we will get those and
No, but
provide
they
them to
haven't
the-
voted on a
the
budget
committee.
yet. Charlton hasn't done their budget recommendations.
It's not in tonight's story, so I have it written.
Well, go for it.
According to Robin Craver, and the numbers are going to change a little bit tonight with the vote of the
Right.
Finance Committee, but going into that meeting, their balanced budget provided $271,865 over and above as an increase to Dudley Charlton the gap between what you voted tonight and what they have as a balanced budget, your gap is 502 to 298. If my math is correct.
I think it is, because
It's basically proportional, so that comes out exactly like Dudley did,
and I had
proportionally.
my worst-case scenario,
So
that
it's $1
would be
million.
about $900,000.
It's almost $1 million. Thank you. That's good to have, so those are targets, at least what we know the worst is,
The worst, yes.
the worst. Thank you.
Okay,
I
anything
just want to
else?
say the budget cuts you made tonight does not affect, as I said last time, staff or the programs. And we kind of reiterate that, we haven't touched the staff or the programs yet. Right.
That's correct. But I think tonight represents pretty much the end of the line on
Right,
that. And the next move we make is going to.
Okay.
Any other questions before I move on the budget? Okay. Next on the agenda is consideration to post essential positions, 2017-2018 school year. Mr. Desto.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. So I'm asking for the committee's approval to post the essential positions that were listed in the superintendent's report. These are open due to retirements and resignations and absolutely must be filled. Would you want me to read the list off of what those positions
Go ahead.
are? Okay. And I do have one proposed addition to the list. I'll mention that when I get to it. So right now, I am asking for your approval to post the following positions at Shepherd Hill: a special education teacher and an instrumental music teacher. At Dudley Middle School, a grade 8 math teacher and a grade 6 math science teacher. At Charlton Middle School, a grade 7 math teacher, which is a 1-year extended employment substitute for a leave of absence. A grade 7 social studies teacher. And I am now going to also ask to post the team chair position at Charlton Middle School. I believe it would be prudent to do that. Hold on a second. And also at Charlton Middle School, a grade 7 English language arts position. At Dudley Elementary and Mason Road, a combined position, it's .5 at each school, is an instructional technology position. And at Charlton Elementary, a kindergarten teacher. Those are our essential positions for tonight. They're not the only essential positions, the only ones open.
Right, right. Any questions on them before we take the vote? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve to post the essential positions for the 2017-2018 school year that Mr. Desto just read to us.
Second.
Discussion.
I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that these are positions being filled due to retirements or resignations. These are not new positions.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just what I always suggest, that you try and, all things being equal, get the lower, the raise, so we could probably save a little money that way.
We hope so. Yep, we're going to try.
Okay, anyone else? No. All in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Consideration of requests for overnight travel, policy IJOA, Mr. Desto.
Thank you. So the interesting request, the Shepherd Hill Environmental Science classes have requested approval for an overnight experience at the Heifer Project Overlook Farm in Rutland. This would be a Saturday into a Sunday, May 13th and 14th. So it's one night overnight. As you will see from, as I included in the package from environmental science teacher Judy Naraki and principal chaplain, the request is for up to 30 students to spend the night at the farm immersed in the experience of poverty. It doesn't sound like fun, but it sounds like a great learning experience. Mrs. Naraki and one other adult will chaperone the group, and the cost per student is $75. And should you approve the trip, we would also need a vote for Mrs. Naraki and a staff member to be named later to receive free or discounted travel and meals with the trip. I do recommend approval based on the educational value of the trip, despite its non-traditional nature.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for the overnight travel.
So, second.
Discussion.
Where does the cost per student come from? Which fund in our budget does that come from?
The students fund it.
The students fund it
They
themselves?
they would have to pay it themselves, yes.
Like a field trip.
Do these types of requests ever go through the Education Foundation?
I'm not, well, no, I'm not aware that an overnight trip ever has. That's a good question, but the DCEF usually does more long-term projects. But it's something to think about for the future. It's creative
Did we
use.
do something before with IHEPA? Did they do something
I
before
thought
with
we
that?
did before,
I think-
yeah.
Did they stay over before? We did something with this project before, but
This
I
is the
don't know
first
if it was
time.
just a date,
I don't know, but they were involved with
I
them
remember
before.
that
I remember
before,
that.
but that's a good idea
May not have been
to
get that
see
far,
if we
but-
can get funding for them.
Yeah,
It's worthwhile.
It's worth talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
My question is, are students driving themselves? Is that what it implied from the letter? And if so, what's our liability on that? I think the letter said they would provide their own transportation, so are we liable for, how does that work?
I believe our insurance covers, when we have staff members drive, it covers, I know that.
If we have a staff member drive, it would. If a student were to leave from their house to go
Right.
straight there, they would be on their own insurance, I believe. I don't
Even
think
though
the
it's a school
would.
function?
Just as if they were driving to the school for a dance,
Okay,
for
so
example.
we're not getting into trouble if something happens.
No, I guess we wouldn't be liable for the
Okay.
students, no.
I just don't like the idea of them driving, but
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. Next meeting dates, Budget and Finance Subcommittee on Wednesday, oh, well, that was
We'll change that to
tonight.
budget workshop.
You're right.
Budget meeting, yeah.
Okay. But we're going to have, on Wednesday, May 3rd, that's going to be our regular school committee meeting, right? That's going to start
Right.
at 4:45.
Correct.
Okay,
We'll have one agenda item.
yes. Then there will be a joint financial meeting the same night, May 3rd, on Wednesday. It will be at the Charlton Middle School, and that's where our school committee meeting will be held. And that will be at 6 p.m. Then our regular scheduled meeting, Wednesday, May 10th, Shepherd Hill, 7 p.m. Town meetings, Charlton, Monday, May 15th. It's going to be at the Charlton Middle School, 7 p.m. Dudley, Monday, May 22nd, town meeting, Shepherd Hill, 7 p.m. Regular meeting, Wednesday, May 24th, Charlton Middle School, 7 p.m.
we also have a nurses, we should talk about the.
Oh, that's right. We're going to have a
May 25th.
nurses meeting.
May 25th at
Yeah,
3:30.
but I think we said we were going to get together.
Right, but I mean, that's,
Yeah.
we want to tell the whole committee because they don't know that.
So, yeah, May 25th at 3:30 at Shepherd Hill. We'll be at the district office, we'll be negotiating.
Negotiating.
Next negotiating session between us and the Massachusetts Nurses
Right.
Association.
And then,
We could talk after. the
yes,
meeting.
Kathy and I will get together with you,
Both of us.
both of you,
Yeah.
to discuss it before that date. Okay, future agenda items, FY 2018 budget, school improvement plans, handbooks, anything else?
I'm going to tentatively schedule an executive session for negotiations. We're going to, at some point, we're going to need to discuss the negotiations with non-union personnel. We're also going to have to discuss administrator contracts.
Okay,
It may not be at the next meeting, maybe the one after that.
all right. Anyone else with future agenda items? And if you think of something, just email. Okay? All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? We're adjourned.